Hello, my lovelies. So happy to have you back. Sandy Salgado here. I hope that you all find yourselves well and in good health as always. We are just a few days from closing off 2021. And if I can be honest, though it has been an eventful year, it has also been a crazy blur, crazy hectic blur, almost like if I don't know how I got here. Does that happen to you, or is that just me? Today we are going to talk about forgiveness, about the art of letting go. Now, it suits perfectly to the closing of the year because we all tend to use the beginning of a new year as somewhat of a reset. We like to start fresh. We want to kick off bad habits to the curb and perhaps develop new, healthier habits. And because of that, I want to open the way for you to kick off a very, very unhealthy habit and perhaps develop a healthier one. The unhealthy habit is that of unforgiveness, and the healthier one would be forgiveness, the art of letting go. Now, before you log off or I lose you, please know that I am perfectly well aware of the fact that it is difficult to forgive. It is not easy. It is not easy to forgive someone who has hurt you, who has wronged you, who has betrayed you. I get it. And it's even harder to accept an apology or to forgive someone who isn't even really sorry. I get it. We all know all too well the struggle. But instead of focusing on the difficulties of unforgiveness, I want to shed light on the importance of forgiveness, why it is absolutely important and essential to be able to forgive. I will be touching here and there on a few important points as far as forgiveness goes, but if you happen to have a few that I didn't mention, please be sure to leave them on the comments so that we can benefit from them as well. Reason number one, why we need to forgive. Forgiveness is for us. I will repeat that. Forgiveness is for us, not for the other person. A couple of years ago, I actually read a book from Salgado. It's titled Traveling Lightly. It talked about living burdened by unnecessary emotions. Unforgiveness being one of them. I would highly, highly recommend that you get your hands on that book. Salgado, Traveling Lightly. It will change your life. But as I was saying, forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for you. Have you ever heard the quote or the saying, how does it go? Unforgiveness is like drinking poison yourself and expecting the other person to die from it. It is one of the slowest forms of suicide. More than likely, the person that wronged you has probably moved past it, already forgotten about it, and here you continue to wallow in misery and bitterness and anger and resentment and frustration and unforgiveness. And let me tell you, if you stay there a little bit too long, you will be consumed by it. Unforgiveness is debilitating and it affects all aspects of our health. It affects us physically, it affects us emotionally, it affects us mentally, and especially spiritually. Reason number two why we need to learn to forgive is because it keeps us from living in the present moment, in the now. Resentment and unforgiveness and bitterness has to do with the past, something that we cannot change, something that we have no control over. And as I've mentioned in many, many, many of my videos, you do not have to become a prisoner of your past. You are not a prisoner of your past unless you choose to be. Reason number three, and it's one of my favorites, is unforgiveness keeps you from discovering and reaching your fullest potential as a human being. Forgiveness highlights your level of maturity. It highlights your level of wisdom. It highlights your character. And most importantly, it brings you closer to God, which is reason enough for me. Reason number four, very, very important. Take a mental note. Make sure that you keep this in your heart because it is one of the most important ones. Reason number four as to why to forgive, because one day we ourselves will be in a situation, if we haven't already, where we will need someone's grace and forgiveness ourselves because of something that we may have done wrong, or a mistake we may have made, or something hurtful that we may have said. We are all flawed, imperfect, sinful human beings, and we will all, at one point or another, need someone's forgiveness. So a little bit of humble pie might be able to help us along our journey. Reason number 5 is unforgiveness could potentially keep us from beautiful experiences and beautiful relationships. Now, I do want to say this just as a disclosure, as a side note. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your scenario looks like. I don't know what your story is. I just want to point out that forgiving someone doesn't necessarily mean that you allow them back into your life, especially if the individual is a toxic individual or if they are repeat offenders where they continue to make the same mistake over and over and over again and the story never changes. Forgiveness could simply look like letting go, leaving behind bitterness, like I've said, unforgiveness, resentment, and anger. Just moving on, in other words, just letting go of all those toxic emotions. It doesn't mean that you have to allow somebody back into your life. You do not have to rekindle a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. But the truth is, and it's more common than not, that unforgiveness could possibly be keeping you from speaking to an estranged parent or an estranged child or a relative. And like I said, I don't know what your situation is, but if it's bitterness or pride or resentment that is keeping you from engaging with this individual, with this loved one, I'd encourage you to really go soul searching and find it in you to really forgive and allow this beautiful relationship to blossom and develop. Do not allow bitterness and unforgiveness to rob you of one more day, of one more moment of peace. And if it is you that you need to forgive, if it is yourself that you need to forgive, because often I think it is one of the most difficult tasks to forgive ourselves. We are our own worst judge at times, and the way in which we speak to ourselves is often debilitating. Just remember that everything, absolutely everything, starts with us. And we cannot offer the world or another individual something that we don't have inside to give. One of the most beautiful stories in the Bible that is a highlight for me as far as what we're discussing forgiveness is the story of King Saul and King David. Because the people, the Israelites, favored and honored and loved King David much more than they did King Saul. King Saul, for about a period of 13 years, hear me loud and clear, 13 years, King Saul persecuted King David and tried to kill him repeatedly, daily. Could you imagine being persecuted for 13 years? I don't know about you, but my patience was nothing like King David's. And here's the deal. Here's why I share this. King David had ample opportunities to strike and kill King Saul, but he never did. And I want to believe that he didn't, because he was a man after God's own heart. And we have to remember that God is in the business of forgiving. But the most beautiful and the most impactful and humbling story of all biblically is that of Jesus. When he was being crucified, he was stripped naked, he was beaten, he was spit on, he was belittled, he was mocked. He was crucified on a cross, and still, during his last moments, while on that cross, he looked up to the Father and he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." We, as flawed, imperfect, and sinful human beings, can only hope to walk in that same manner. So, this new year, I want you to let go of resentment, let go of bitterness, let go of unforgiveness, let go of grudges, let go of anything that is causing bitterness and chaos inside of you. And not for anybody else. Not for anybody else, not because I tell you, but do it for you. Start fresh. Do not waste another day. I do hope that this message helps. I hope that it finds you. I hope that you really take it to heart and that you start this new 2022 with a new mindset about forgiveness. I love you all. I do hope to see you again soon. Until next time, God bless each and every one of you. Ciao.